on track, right with the modifieds here in New England at Riverside Park Speedway for another round of great competition in auto racing today. Hello, I'm Ben Dodge, and I welcome you to yet another edition of Raceweek. Well, in this edition of Raceweek, it's a picture-perfect night here in the heart of New England, and the cars are getting geared up for some great racing action. The Riverside Park Speedway is hosting 4 divisions of competition. The modifieds, the pro stocks, and the late models, and even the strictly stocks that are lined up on the front straightaway are all going extra distance in this program. But besides all of that, we'll bring you great racing action from the high banks of Monadnock Motor Raceway for round number 2 in the competition there. We'll also be taking a look at great racing action from the Lee USA Speedway and a look at the Axe Course Tour from Airborne Park. But right now, it's time to get things geared up right here from the Riverside Park Speedway for another round of summer excitement. The competition at the Riverside Park Speedway has never been any more impressive than in 1991. There's been a host of different winners, and this event would be no exception to the rule. The front-running drivers from NASCAR Modified Racing were all assembled. The front row would be Bobby G, the independent, and Chris Kopech with car number M6. Wade Cole and Eddie Spires would make up the second row. 3 rows back on the inside, it was Brian Schofield and Charlie Pastriak. As the stage was set, the competition was about to unfold, and once up to green, it was Bobby G in command. G was setting the pace at the front of the field, and not far behind, there was a battle shaping up as Bruce D'Alessandro was coming to the outside of Brad Hietala to contend among the top 5 cars. Marty Radwick was on a roll with car number 21, and Bruce D'Alessandro was looking very strong, changing lanes. The driver's change, speaking of changes, was Stan Greger driving car number 44 when Chris Kopech was pulled out of the competition. It was then Bruce Dell who would rustle up enough steam on the inside, shuffle the deck just a bit, and D'Alessandro would pick up a spot to the inside of Wade Cole. Back to the front of the class, it was Charlie Pastriak who was bidding for position number 1. Bobby G was looking good, but Pastriak was looking better. Remember how strong he was just 1 week ago. Then suddenly, contact down the front straightaway. Richie Gallup was involved, and so was Brad Hietala with car number 54. This would bring out a caution as one of the tires would literally come off the rims of the car. And car number 0 for Richie Gallup would have some suspension damage done to the front of the Advanced Manufacturing number 0. But once the field went back to green, it was the color true blue at the front of this field, and it was Charlie Pastriak in command. Eddie Spires was looking good for second, then it was Stan the Man Greger to the outside. When out of nowhere to contend would come Ricky Fuller and Jerry Marquis with car number 2X. Kirby Monteith was running like Jack the Bear as he was threading the needle also to get to the front of the field. Then Radwick was putting on some pressure too. But it was still Greger holding off Monteith. Contact was made. They back out of it just a bit, but not enough to create a great deal of concern. Back towards the front of the class, it was time for the red machine to take over position number 1, and it was Jerry Marquis. Remember, he's been a runner-up in the point standing for the past 3 years. And guess what? Not far behind from McVette's number 44 for Ricky Fuller. Watch out. These two had trouble a week ago. Would it happen once again? Well, this time they'd be evenly matched. Same problem where the problem developed last time. This time it was Ricky Fuller who got out of shape by himself. And guess what? It cost Fuller. But that wasn't the only casualty because it cost Charlie Pastriak too. The damage was front suspension damage on car number 5. But once back to green, it was car number 2X setting the pace once again. The Bob Judkins car for Marquis was the leader of the pack. And Bruce D'Alessandro, he had finally broken out to contend for the number 2 spot. Kirby Monteith was flying and not letting D'Alessandro get far out of his sight. And George Udinas was also a major factor. And guess who? Once again, from the back of the pack, it was Ricky Fuller. He was threading the needle to get to the front too, but he was starting to push just a bit and push and make contact with other competitors. But that didn't seem to stop the talents of Ricky Fuller when George Udinas would wrap into the bumper and say, "Hey, what's the matter here?" Down the back straightaway, that would put a Nerf bar into the left rear wheel of car number 44, setting off a great deal of smoke. That would bring out a black flag situation for the number 44. Now, the rules say 3 laps for the black flag, then you're out. Then Fuller plays the game well and spun all by himself to bring out a caution. Well, that's okay, and when the officials came to assist him, he managed to squeak back out of the pit area. But back at the front of this class, it was still Jerry Marquis. Bruce D'Alessandro was still coming on strong, and Stan Greger and Larry Moore would come together, sending Moore around down the front straightaway. No severe damage done here, but Moore would have to do it from the back of the pack. It was Bruce D'Alessandro challenging Jerry Marquis for position number 1. The challenge was on, but Marquis was still setting the pace when suddenly Monteith would go around with some help. Eddie Spires would be involved. Rudinas would also make contact, and Bobby G, once the leader of the event, would also have his share of problems. Kevin Zarnecki's car set severely damaged. He, too, was a victim of circumstances. The Monteith car was the car that went around with some help. It would be brought back to the pit. It was Jerry Marquis, now challenged by last week's feature event winner, Dan Avery. And yes, Ricky Fuller was still considered a contender here. Fuller would work his way to the inside for position number 2. Marquis was still on a roll, and Dan Avery was dominating the racing action on the outside. 2 black cars bidding for the number 2 spot, but time was starting to run out. And car number 2 was the car that would set in the winner's circle. Following Jerry Marquis to the checker was Dan Avery over Ricky Fuller, Bruce D'Alessandro, and Marty Radway. For the Pro Stock division, it was extra distance and extra cash. 50 circuits around the quarter mile. As Kenny Johnson will be starting right up front of the man that owns the real estate and more at Riverside Park, Ed Carroll. With Johnson in command of the event, the battle and the attention suddenly turned to the middle of the pack. G. Perry to the inside of Dave Barabee. Contact was made and things got shuffled around and bounced up just a bit. Wayne Carroll had moved to the outside and managed to take over the number 2 spot. Not far behind was Chris Kopech. Turcotte was on a roll, and Mike Duquette was looking very strong with the Chrysler-powered number 3. Shuffle of the deck, inside lane, outside gets bobbled up. Ed Carroll, the leader, goes around. Involved in the mix-up is Turcotte, Tony Papali, Blaine Bells, and Chris Kopech. Ed Carroll is the car that suffered the most of the damage here. Now on the restart, it is G. Perry who looks very strong at the front of this pack. Remember, he is a rookie competitor at Riverside Park and literally starts to pull away. Eddie Carroll moves to the outside when Mike Duquette has a problem with the Matt Powers number 3, and he drops off the pace. Dave Barabee, the rookie, is also running very strong in the 4th spot, while Jerry Marquis has moved into position number 3. And Billy Lordson is on a roll on the outside, hunting down Mark Perino. But speaking of hunting down, car number 17 has now taken over the lead. It is Eddie Carroll, son of the owner of Riverside Park, the point leader, now in command. Jerry Marquis moves into contend and takes over the number 2 spot with ease. Car number 73 is up to second. Contact is made. Now it is Jerry Marquis who goes spinning. Billy Lordson literally almost stops to avoid a spinning Marquis, and Marquis will have to do it from the back of the pack with car number 73. Meanwhile, when they go back to green, Eddie Carroll, who has the talent to run the outside, is pressured heavily by Mark Perino with car number 52. Perino puts the pressure on down low. Front pack of cars, a new battle shaping up. Here is Dave Caruso with car number 42. Caruso puts the pressure down underneath Carroll to contend for position number 1. 2 feature event winners already this season are duking it out for the number 1 spot. They come off the turn by inches back to the line. It is Caruso this time to set in the number 1 spot. But not far behind is Perino with car number 52. Contact is made. Caruso goes sliding to the center of the infield. He is out of harm's way. And now the new battle for the lead becomes a battle between the 52 of Mark Perino and car number 17. Back to the line they come, and Perino, who got married the night before, had now moved into position number 1. It was Mark Perino, former track champion, to take away the lead from the current point leader at Riverside, Eddie Carroll. And guess what? Jerry Marquis was back up front with car number 73. And not far behind was Tony Papali with number 14, hunted down by Tommy Fern. Good racing action up front of the competition here. But time had run out, and it was car number 52 for the newlywed for Mark Perino to set in the winner's circle. Jerry Marquis would finish in second over Eddie Carroll, Tony Papali, and Tommy Fern to finish in the 5th spot. Late model competition, it started out with a lot of bumping and banging, and it was Jim Rule who withstood all of that to take over position number 1. Eddie Chalmers would try, and Travis Robinson would lead for quite a while. Then he would manage to falter just a bit. Then it was Chris Benson Woods who moved to the front of this class. He was on a roll. He had quickly taken over the number 1 spot. Eddie Chalmers was not far behind as Woods was dominating the racing action right down to the checker. It was Chris Benson Woods to take down the victory. Eddie Chalmers in for second over Jimmy Rule, Mike Quintiliano, and Bob Serra. Well, the competition has been fast and furious here at Riverside Park Speedway. But one of the key ingredients in any short track run is brakes. Mark Wernes talks to one of the competitors about brake adjustment and how they can get the most braking power from their racing machine.
This black knob can help change the handling of a NASCAR modified. It's a brake adjuster. Drivers like Reggie Ruggiero use the brake adjuster to change the stopping power between the front and rear brakes.
Well, here at Riverside Park, being this is a tight quarter-mile racetrack, the corners, if you want to run on the bottom, the corners are real sharp. And if you had a lot of front brake in the car going into the corner, it's going to lock the front of the car up first. Not lock them up, but slow the front of the car down. That'll create a push. If the car is loose going in the corner, you want to put more front brakes to the car so the back tires don't grab first. If If you want to run the bottom of Riverside, you got to use a lot of rear brakes. But sometimes, if the car isn't going so good, you have to put a brake into the front. So you need the adjuster to make that little bit of a final adjustment during the race, which only the driver can control.
In racing, so much of the setup of the car is determined before the driver goes out on the track. But when it comes to the brakes, the driver has the last word.
I'm only really fine-tuning the way that I prefer to drive the race car. A lot of guys just don't even have a brake adjuster. They like a neutral brake front to rear, and I like to play with it. It makes the race car go better on a shorter racetrack. A bigger racetrack, it really doesn't make a difference.
Until about 5 years ago, there was no such thing as brake adjusters. But everything changes once you have the tools.
I use the rear brakes a lot here to get under people. This way it turns the back of the car, which makes the front turn left, and that's how you drive by somebody.
Reporting from the Riverside Park Speedway, this is Mark Burness for Raceweek.
Thanks, Mark. Well, speaking of brakes, we're going to put the brakes on for just a moment. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at more great racing action. This time from another favorite short track, Monadnock Motor Raceway. All of that and more right after this. Time to go back to the high banks of Monadnock Motor Raceway. Now remember, last week the modified feature ended under a red checker situation when Ted Brown made contact with one of the light poles. Well, things are lighted up right once again, and we're ready to go racing. The big question is, will Ricky Fuller be able to pull it off when the event will go the total distance? How about Jerry Marquis or Dave Caruso or even Jim McCallum in the pro stock? Let's put it all to the test this time at the high banks of Monadnock Motor Raceway. It was a picture-perfect day Sunday in the Green Mountains of New Hampshire as the setting was great for the competition. 50 laps was the distance of the high banks of Monadnock. For the modified division, and starting right up front was Bruce D'Alessandro with car number 37. Wade Cole would be on the outside of the road. Then it was Rusty Ball and Tim Maroka. Ted Brown on the inside of the next row as the field would be set and go to green. D'Alessandro would stand on the throttle in the Hanks car and literally start to pull away. Front pack of cars, Tim Maroka on the outside, when Brian Schofield would tuck it down low. Ricky Fuller was threading the needle, and so was Dwight Jarvis, with Jerry Marquis not very far behind with car 73. Chris Benson Woods and Ron Levesque would come together in the back of the pack. No real damage done there. Then Rusty Ball was coming on very strong to take over second with car number 20. Ball was on a roll heading to the front of this pack. Meanwhile, Ricky Fuller would go to the outside as Brian Schofield was down low. Dwight Jarvis is watching all of this from an ideal starting spot. Then it was car number 33 for Wade Cole who went spinning. Meanwhile, Ricky Fuller had moved to the inside of Rusty Ball and had taken over the number 2 spot. Deep into the turn, the battle was still on for second. Contact was made. Rusty Ball and Ricky Fuller had come together, and Ricky Fuller had won around with car number 44. He would have to do it now from the back of the pack. Meanwhile, Dwight Jarvis had put a bold move on Rusty Ball to try to take over the number 1 spot. He would tuck down low, then move underneath D'Alessandro and easily have position number 1. Rusty Ball had now worked his way to the bottom, and he would force D'Alessandro off the spot. It was Rusty Ball up to position number 2. Jerry Marquis was coming from the back of the pack, and now D'Alessandro was starting to drift up a lane. And here comes Ricky Fuller. Remember, he spun earlier with Rusty Ball. Watch out, anything could happen and probably will. Deep into the turn they go. It is a battle now for position number 3. Fuller has reeled it in. He'll dive to the inside. They come off the turn. The white flag is out. This is the battle for position number 2. Fuller washes up. Rusty Ball is out of the ballpark. Fuller holds it back down, but damage is done to both automobiles, and that is costly. Dwight Jarvis will set in the winner's circle. Bruce D'Alessandro finished in second. Jerry Marquis is third. Fourth is Brian Schofield, and fifth is Ted Brown. For Ricky Fuller, payoff, well, you know the story. He heads back to the pits with a damaged race car. 30 laps was the distance in the Pro Stock main event when car number 1 Vermont for Lenny Reynolds would go to the outside of John Corliss to take over position number 1. Funky Karen was on a roll early with the number 88. He dived into second. Tuck it down low underneath Reynolds. That was the challenge for the lead. Not far behind, Dave Caruso was coming to life with car number 28X. Caruso was getting hits up on the outside when car number 12 for Brett Rollins was looking good. Middle pack of cars, here comes Jerry Marquis. John Lobo Jr. is stuck in the middle as they come off the turn. Marquis was running impressively in the outside groove, and not far behind was Rob Goodenough with car number 1. Good challenge shaping up here. Marquis picks off another one. Meanwhile, Gigi Gravel will go to the outside and contend for position number 2. Gravel has now taken over the number 2 spot from Caruso. Brett Rollins sets in third. Not far behind is Jimmy McCallum. John Lobo Jr. gets the black flag. He's got a problem with some body panels dragging from car number 760. That sends him back to the pit area. Jim McCallum makes contact with Brett Rollins, and McCallum goes around with car number 2. He's forced to gather it back and do it from the back of the pack. Jim Boniface is looking strong to the outside of Brett Rollins. Caruso holds off Marquis. Out in front, it is Funky Karen. Battle is now among the top 5 cars for position number 4. It is Marquis on the outside of car number 28 for Dave Caruso. Caruso tries to keep it nice and low. They're pretty much evenly matched as they come back to the line. Karen still sets the pace. This is now the battle for third. Down low, Caruso keeps a nice tight line. Wheels on the inside of the racetrack. Further back in the pack, Funky Karen comes up on a lap car. It is Jeff Beckwith at the checker. It is Funky Karen. Gigi Gravel to finish in second over Jerry Marquis, Dave Caruso, and Brett Rollins to round out the top 5. The late model feature event was 25 laps in distance, and Robbie Bouchard would set the pace right from the start. It was Rob Cross who was running a good second. He was putting the pressure on when suddenly, with a little bit of help, Bouchard would go around with car number 48. That would force him to have to do it from the back of the pack. Up front, Ed Stone was running strong, but Rob Cross was the leader of the pack. Then Wayne Tack would slam the wall hard. Jay Perillo would also go spinning to the center of the infield with car number 11, and that would bring out a caution. Once things got tightened back up, it was Rob Cross to the inside of Barry Gray for position number 1. Tom Stone was running in the third spot. Off the turn, Cross and Gray would lock horns, spin around, and that would send a melee of cars spinning on the racetrack. No question about that. Also spinning was Bill Bry with car number 68. The cars in the top 3, well, they had their share of problems in this one. It's car number 39. Tommy Stone was the man that set the pace now. Jim Rule, the front runner in this division, would head to the pits with car number 55. Tom Stone would be the man who dominates the racing action to the checker. Roger Shepard would finish in second over Teddy Chalmers, Barry Gray, and Pete Jarvis. Well, you've just witnessed 2 of the best short tracks in their performance at the Monadnock Motor Raceway and the Riverside Park Speedway. Well, now it's time to take another commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be taking a look at Lee USA, the ACT Tour, and a whole lot more right after this. May, Raceweek airs on Thursday evenings at 6:30, Saturday mornings at 10:30, or check your local listing for the best in motorsports coverage right here with us on Raceweek. Well, now it's time to go and take a look at another great short track in the heart of New England. The Lee USA Speedway hosted some great racing action as Chris Romano files this report.
Thanks, Ben. We're here on a lovely Sunday afternoon at Lee USA Speedway for round 2 of the SM LaRusso & Sons 1991 Northeast Midget Association Tour. Practice has just finished. We're about to get the heats underway. Before we do get the heats underway, we had a chance to talk with Joey Coy and Russ Storr, who finished 1-2 respectively last week at Star Speedway. We asked them their assessment of their chances for this weekend.
Well, NEMA is without a doubt the most competitive midget club as far as I'm concerned in the country right now. When we start a feature, any one of 12 cars can win it. It's not that easy. It's a job.
In heat race action, it was a repeat of what happened the week before at Star Speedway. First heat, the number 83 of Doug Cleveland took off for a couple of laps, but coming up strong with the number 8 of Mike Seymour. Seymour took the lead after a couple of laps and went on to win his second straight heat event. 94 of Joey Coy was second, the 45 of Drew Fenora rounded out the top 3. And in heat number 2, a fantastic dice between Bobby Seymour, the number 2 of Lee Smith, and the 107 of Babe Shaw, making his first start of the 1991 season. When all was said and done, it was Bobby Seymour taking his second straight heat race on the year. Lee Smith was second, and the 107 of Shaw rounded out the top 3. Well, at feature time, the president of the Northeast Midget Association, Mike Pavuli, had to stand atop his car for the second week in a row and watch the feature, but what a feature it was that he got to watch. Breaking out from the pack early was the number 12 New Jersey, but Joey Payne, a new entry on the NEMA roster this year. Payne had a freight train behind him consisting of a Russ Storr, the Seymour brothers, the 45 of Drew Fenoro, and the 94 of Joey Coy. Payne was able to to hold on to the lead for 5 laps before being passed by Russ Storr. Storr did a brilliant move in turn 1 in traffic, found the way around, and was able to get by Payne. Russ Storr was never headed, taking his first victory of the 1991 season and beginning the title defense as he is the defending champion of the Northeast Midget Association. Mike Seymour was able to pick his way through traffic as well as the race went green to checker. Seymour was never quite able to catch up to Storr, however, and had to settle for second place. Bobby Seymour came on strong in the closing stages. A great battle for third place was waged between he, Joe Payne, Funoro, and the 94 of Joey Coy. Payne was able to hang on for fourth. Drew Funoro just beat his brother Nicky to the line. Nick was driving the number 22 for Mike Scrivani, and Joey Coy finished 7th on the day. We were able to get Russ Storr's thoughts and take a look at a badly worn right rear tire in Victory Lane. Russ, just from taking a look at that right rear, it didn't have too long to go on it, did it?
No, I don't think we'll use that one again.
Russ, the key to this race seems to be breaking out of the pack early and then trying to find the way around traffic since it went green to checker.
Yeah, traffic was very tough, and we did get a break early. Very glad everything came out the way it did.
Next up on the NEMA SM LaRusso and Sons Tour will be May 25th, the night before the Indy 500 at Star Speedway. This is a recent addition to the schedule. We'll be back at Star Memorial Day weekend, and Race Week will have all the action for you from there. For Race Week, I'm Chris Romano.
Thanks, Chris. Well, 30 laps was the distance in the Pro Stock mid-event, and Steve Moulton, right from the start, who was very, very strong. He started to pull away, and suddenly the battle became a battle for second. Steve Channing would move to the inside of Damon Tavalis as he'd run the outside as the challenge was on. Then it was Wayne Hellowell who looked very, very strong at the front of the pack. Not far behind was Pete Frappier with car number 05. Gahan was looking good with the number 50. He was really in on Art Tappan when suddenly the 66 of Steve Moulton would head to the pits. Gahan would then pick up the spot, and Pete Madden was right there as a factor. They were all contending. Art Tappan on the outside. Pete Madden, suddenly things got crossed up. It was Tappan who'd get sideways. Scott Bonney would literally go up on top of Eric Hudson and literally shear the roof off the automobile. Also spinning in the mix-up was Scott Watts with car number F80. The number 37 set stranded on the racetrack, but Hudson was okay. Back to the front of the class, Hellowell was running strong when Art Tappan was back in the hunt with the hood flapping when Gahan would spin to the inside of the racetrack. That would create a problem once again, and Damon Tavalis was also involved in the mix-up. Meanwhile, Franny Colson would pin Rosenfield up into the wall. As car number 44 now set stranded, Franny Colson was also out of the competition here. Hellowell was the star of the show, and he would bring him back to the checker. But a disqualification would give Phil Burrill the victory. Rick Burrill would be in for second, Pete Madden was third, Russ running, and Art Tappan to round out the top 5. It was now time for stop number 3 for the American-Canadian Tour, and what a turnout. Literally the biggest turnout in the history of the Airborne International Raceway in Plattsburgh, New York. Everybody came out for this one, and this event would live up to its reputation. 100 circuits around in the competition here, a purse of $40,000. As Beaver Dragon would quickly jump into position number 1. Not far behind, it was Roger LaPearl who was putting some pressure on. Then in the front pack of cars, havoc would strike as car number 40, Bill Zarda, would tag the wall. Devon Pacombe would also make contact with car number 61. Then Junior Hanley would dive to the inside on lap number 71 and take over position number 1 from Beaver Dragon. Once Hanley got the lead, it looked like he was going to be the man that would secure the victory with ease. Out at the front of the class, Dragon was running strong. Then it was McDonald who moved to the inside of Robbie Crouch. The two were dicing it up for position number 3. McDonald on the bottom. He put the hammer down when suddenly Hanley, the leader, would spin all by himself. Good battle was now shaping up for the lead. McDonald and, of course, Robbie Crouch were contending now for position number 1. Down the front straightaway, Crouch would be the man who'd dominate the racing action. McDonald would reel him in, drift up a bit. The two would make contact and give Dragon back the lead. Dragon was now in command when suddenly McDonald would go around. Crouch would have to regroup and gather it back up. Back to the front of the field, it was Derek Lynch who was the new star of this show, but not far behind was Kevin LePage. LePage was moving in, but smoke was coming from beneath the Derek Lynch car. Final circuit of competition. Here comes LePage to the outside. Lynch's car was smoking heavily. It was now a drag race to the checker. LePage was on the outside. Right to the wire it would come down as LePage would hold off Derek Lynch by inches.
Yeah, I just give my hat off to Derek. You know, I got on the outside of him. He didn't run me hard. He didn't run into me. He just gave me all the room on the outside, and he had all the room on the inside. And, you know, I hooked up real good on the outside, and, you know, we were able to put this Ford Thunderbird in the victory lane.
Well, it's once again time to close another edition of Raceweek. We remind you that things are going to get really geared up for the next edition of Raceweek. The competition will begin for Friday night racing action at the Stafford Motor Speedway. The NASCAR Winston Modified Tour will be on to another first at Nazareth Speedway in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Besides that, we'll bring you great racing action from the high banks of Monadnock Motor Raceway and the competition right here from the Riverside Park Speedway. Until then, we say take care, and we'll see you again next time for the best in motorsports coverage, only right here with us on Raceweek. Take care. Bye-bye now.